Today's conversation is on thinking and acting in a certain way as articulated by Wallace Wattles, and I trust you'll find benefit to this video in various areas of life that transcends what normally that book, we could say typically that book where he discusses this is applied for. And I'm referring to the book, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. And as mentioned, there are those that prefer to apply what is being discussed in the book to acquire material wealth. Nothing wrong with that. What I found from applying what was discussed in the book and producing material wealth and building 3 successful businesses is also how it can be applied for different areas of your life. Now, when he's referring to thinking and acting in a certain way, he's referring to it from the perspective of the sure foundation of knowing that what you desire is already yours. So we could say from a place of certainty, from a place of conviction. And how does one tap into this? Well, we explored this up to a particular degree in the video on Sunday, where we discussed with Danielle Lin how she built her YouTube channel to over 70,000 subscribers in less than 3 months by what she refers to as listening to and honoring the resonant yes. I also relate this over to thinking and acting in a certain way. As in, from the resonant yes, I can think clearly, I can think accurately. From the resonant yes, which is again the intuitive yes, I can act with conviction. Now, from personal experience, this is what helped me build 3 successful businesses, generate wonderful life experiences, harmonious relationships in personal life and business life, thinking and acting in a certain way. So the way he describes it in the book, The Science of Getting Rich, is, again, from a place of certainty. So certainty, acting from a place of certainty, confidence, thinking from a place of confidence, of the fact that what you desire is yours. And again, not in a force-based way, not in a stress-based way, rather from a state of flow. Why? Because essentially, once you accept that what you desire is already yours, you are on the journey to actualizing your vision. Ideas, hunches, inspirations are received with it via intuition. And you could choose to act upon those intuitive insights and see those plans or see those steps into fruition. Or you could not do that. You could procrastinate, you can hesitate, you can doubt yourself, you can doubt the intuitive insight. That's totally up to you. No shame and condemnation. What he's speaking about is taking that intuitive insight and connecting it with that step with conviction. Now, through the repetition of doing this again and again and again, I trust you'll find that you automatically act with conviction. You automatically think certainly, we could say. Now, what do I mean by this? Let's explore this further. Again, when I refer to, as he's referring to, acting and thinking in a certain way, I'm not talking about watching YouTube videos, reading books, watching TikTok videos or Instagram videos, etc., and taking what the author or content creator is suggesting and applying it and considering that to be the certain way, as in what they say is the certain way, as in you must do what they suggest that you do, that you must not do what they suggest you should not do, that you need to think in a way that they suggest, or not think in a way that they suggest, or not think at all. This is about thinking for yourself. Certainly, the information that is presented can hold valuable insights and perspectives that could be very helpful for you. What we're talking about here is listening to yourself and trusting yourself and allowing intuition to determine the next step. and taking that step. That is the context of thinking and acting in a certain way. So again, it does not refer to a certain way of doing things that someone suggests, although that may be helpful and applicable at times. What's being referred to here is listening to yourself and trusting yourself. Listening to and honoring, as Danielle had mentioned, the resonant yes. From the resonant yes, you may think in a certain way easily and also act in a certain way easily, as it is the natural thing to do. It is the natural way to think. Perfect example would be when we coordinated the event. We committed to doing the event, and then naturally what arose from there were the steps, the plans, the team. Everything flowed naturally to be in harmony with us, as we are in harmony with all, and we simply took the steps in a certain way. And in relation to whatever appeared, we thought in a certain way. Let's explore this further. What is thinking in a certain way? It is thinking from the premise that you can't fail, that you're not in a position to essentially be derailed from your purpose. You can't be distracted by what appears out here, the outer circumstances, by people, by information. It is an illusion to think that. It is not real. As in, only the individual in their own mind can think otherwise. They can think that circumstances distracts them. People distract them. Information distracts them. If they don't think that way, if they don't identify with mental chatter that suggests otherwise, as mentioned, they will receive the intuitive insight within. And when they act upon that intuitive insight, they are acting in a certain way. Now, thinking in a certain way is plans that arise from the sure foundation of your vision as a fact in imagination. By that I mean all things exist now in imagination. You can imagine anything, yet what you choose to imagine is your vision, actualized in form in imagination, and allow that to appear. What you do, what you don't do, what you say, what you don't say, people, environment, circumstance, information, all correspond in harmony with you to actualize your vision. Now, you may receive plans within, or you may encounter a particular circumstance, and with respect to that circumstance, you know what to do by going within and checking in with yourself. So a practical way that I found to do this is, let's use conversations with people as an example. Prior to conversations, during conversations, and after conversations, I am aware of what I think. I am aware of my emotional relatability to the person, and also I'm aware of my behaviors. Again, prior to interaction, during interaction, and after interaction. And I can tell right there if I am thinking or acting in a certain way, which is from a position of conviction, certainty, or not. If not, no shame and condemnation. I simply be still for a moment. Acknowledge the space between the appearances and the imaginal activity. If it's illusory imaginal activity, that suggests illusions of separation between you and the other person, as in not love, not happiness, not peace, not bliss, not fulfillment. You may release it in the moment. You can choose to not identify with those illusions of separation in the moment. Then, by honoring that space, clarity arises. The intuitive step arises. Practically speaking, I get asked this question a lot. Is if you see someone that you're interested in talking to you, what do you say to start the conversation with them? What do you not say? What do you do, and what do you not do? And how does one overcome the resistance to talking to them? Exactly like what we're talking about right here, thinking and acting in a certain way. By not identifying with any kind of illusory thinking that appears in mind prior to the interaction, by allowing the emotions to be released, if a person considers those emotions to be, which are energy in motion, fear-based, anxiety-based, they can allow those emotions to be released. And as those emotions are released, they think and act in a certain way. Then all of a sudden, they automatically, we could say, know what to say. Or an idea may appear in their mind of what to say to the person. And it feels natural, authentic, and they end up saying the thing, and the interaction goes harmoniously. Again, with respect to behaviors, if there's tension-based behaviors or force-based behaviors prior to interaction, we accept ourselves the way we are, full acceptance. And we do this by being still, by allowing the emotions to be released, allowing the thoughts that suggest otherwise, and by that I mean specifically, not from the premise of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, to be released. And then we find that we think and we act in a certain way. We start the conversation from a place of certainty. Now, when we start the conversation with someone, one of the things that I recommend doing is not identifying with a particular outcome. Remember, as mentioned, that thinking and acting in a certain way does not mean you should act in a way that I tell you to act, or this other person tells you to act, or what you read in a book, or what you watched in a video. While that information may be helpful and can be applicable, thinking and acting in a certain way, as articulated in The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, transcends that. It points to the fact that via intuition, you know what to say, you know what to do. So what I do is release attachment to particular outcomes, that this interaction needs to go in this way or that way. That is simply revealing a bias. So I recommend releasing that bias. If that bias appears prior, release the bias. If the bias appears during, release the bias. Allow the conversation to flow in a way that is in harmony with both individuals, and it will go in ideal ways. I trust then you'll notice that when you start conversations with people, it will flow naturally. And there are many reasons why I recommend doing this. One of the reasons is if you remove the bias, then you remove the labels that are generating the emotions, the energy in motion, to be experienced in particular ways. So we could say certain ways, not from the context of what Wallace Wattles is talking about, but rather in a biased way. So we could say then anxiety or fear or lack of self-acceptance or something like that. By removing the bias, you naturally flow to start the conversation. The conversation naturally flows, and I trust you found by doing this is not something new to you. You have done it. This is essentially being in flow. I trust you've noticed that the interaction has universally flowed in a mutually harmonious way. So that is thinking and acting in a certain way. So we talked about prior to conversation. Let's talk about during conversations. So during conversations with a person, again, you are aware of what you think, how you emotionally relate with the other person, and your behaviors. You accept yourself unconditionally the way you are. If illusory thoughts that suggest separation appear in mind, you release those thoughts. You don't identify with them as they are not you. Acknowledge you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment for no reason at all. Those thoughts that suggest otherwise, illusions of separation from being love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, are illusory. So release those thoughts. If there's emotions, allow the emotions to flow. It can be helpful to take a deep breath now and then and breathe out. And through this practice, you find that you think and act in a certain way. So a person can look at this from the perspective of him suggesting to forcefully think and act in a certain way. That is not what he's referring to. He is referring to thinking and acting in a certain way from the sure foundation that your vision is reality in imagination, and it's appearing to play out here. Your behaviors, your thoughts, your emotions, people, environment, circumstance, and information are all in harmony with you to actualizing that vision. And this, again, is based on my personal experience from applying thinking and acting in a certain way for many years now. And so now let's look at after interactions. It is helpful prior to interactions, during interactions, and after interactions to not form limiting beliefs in mind by suggesting illusions of separation, labeling the interaction to go in a way that is not helpful and authentic to your true way of being. If a person generates illusory beliefs in mind that suggest not love, not happiness, not peace, not bliss, not fulfillment, they clutter the subconscious mind with this kind of programming, which then they may experience mental chatter prior to the interactions, during the interactions, and after the interactions, and no shame and condemnation. They are presented with opportunities to release those identifications. So what I suggest is not forming any more limiting beliefs in mind with respect to your true nature and harmonious relationship with people. So any beliefs that fall, we can say, in the category of not love, not happiness, not peace, not bliss, not fulfillment, I have no interest. You have no interest in forming those beliefs, as they are not you. You are authentically love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment for no reason at all. And you choose to experience it with interactions with people in whatever shape or form. So after the interactions, it's important to be aware of what you relate to the experience. Let's say you approach someone and you start a conversation with them. If it goes in a way where, let's say, you get their phone number, great. If they don't give you the phone number, great. Now a person might think, wait, Joseph, I would have really liked to have gotten their phone number. And to this I say that it doesn't matter if you get their phone number or not. And by that I mean, specifically, it does not define you in an inharmonious way. If you suggest that getting the phone number means happiness and not getting the phone number means unhappiness, then you can form a belief that now adds another bias in your subconscious mind. And that can generate mental chatter and emotions being experienced in a particular way. We could say social anxiety and all kinds of convoluted behaviors that have nothing to do with actualizing your vision, which is harmonious relationships, let's say. So what happens then if a person does not form those beliefs, or if opportunities are presented to release identification to those beliefs and the individual takes those opportunities, is they find it's easier to start conversations. It is easier to practice emotional intelligence during the interactions. And then after the interactions, they don't shame, they don't condemn themselves. Rather, they accept themselves and they actually consider it, you could say, as a win for starting the conversation. So it's a win then for starting the conversation. It's a win then if it goes in the direction of they give you their phone number. And it's a win if they don't give you the phone number, because regardless, you have been practicing unconditional self-acceptance. Unconditional acceptance of the fact that you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Now, as you do that, the mind is purified. The beliefs that perhaps were formed at a particular point are released. And then you find that you naturally, automatically, as I say sometimes, ideally automatically, think and act in a certain way. This has been my experience starting conversations with people, in business, in personal life. Many comment, Joseph, when we're out and about, you're always starting conversations with people. Well, I don't know about always, but quite often I do, if I feel like it. If authentically, intuition says, talk to this person, I walk over and start the conversation with them. And back in the days, there was resistance. There was mental chatter. I was, you could say, not thinking and acting in a certain way. So we know the distinction now. Thinking and acting in a certain way is thinking and acting from conviction, listening to the intuitive insight and honoring it. And as we discussed in the video that I released on Tuesday, which I trust you'll benefit greatly from watching it if you have not already seen it, is through the repetition of doing that again and again, we close the gap, the illusory gap between the intuitive insight and the step. The illusory gap I refer to as mental chatter, emotional turmoil, convoluted behaviors, that is a result of particular beliefs in mind that are looking to be released. And so you have the opportunity to purify the mind every time you listen to and honor the intuitive yes. As you do this, you automatically embody what Wallace Wattles describes as thinking and acting in a certain way. So it does not mean thinking and acting in a certain way that someone suggests that you should act. That is not the context. It is referring to thinking and acting in a certain way from conviction and listening to your heart and intuition and honoring that intuitive step, whether it be take the step, don't take the step, say this, don't say this, or intuition might say, start the conversation with the person. And I don't question it. I start the conversation. And then what happens is the conversation flows. I trust you've noticed this. So what helps us facilitate thinking and acting in a certain way? And let's say, what can facilitate allowing this to be a natural way of life, which is our natural way of life? We could say then we are aligning to the natural order of things, our natural way of being, through mind purification that happens on the journey by, as the intuitive yes arises, we honor it, whether it be take the step, don't take the step, say this or don't say that, without shame, without condemnation. How can we facilitate thinking and acting in a certain way more often? Maybe a question that you have. Well, the way we do this, I have found, is by being in flow. Flow is our natural way of being. While we're in flow, neurotransmitters are released in an ideal ratio that facilitate behavioral and emotional relationship in an ideal way, which then we could say results in resistancelessness, if that's a word. And what happens then is a person automatically honors their intuition. They think and act in a certain way. Now, another thing that happens while you're in flow is the reconciliation between divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Divergent thinking is seeing things from many different perspectives. Convergent thinking may be applying well-established solutions. So let's say you watch a video and one person says, just do whatever you feel like doing. That could sound very divergent. Now, another person might say this particular line, and then after that, say this other line. One way is not better than the other. The best way is your way. You discover your way by listening to yourself, honoring the magic path of intuition. So this happens naturally and automatically while you're in flow. It's a reconciliation of divergent ways of doing things and convergent ways of doing things. Practically speaking, it may be one of these ways. It may be one of these ways. Yeah, what I find is that it shows up in a way that is authentic to you. So it could be a variation, we could say, of a convergent way, a variation of a divergent way. Yet while you're in flow, it happens naturally and automatically, which is why over the years I have recommended on this channel to make flow a priority, which is essentially to make yourself a priority, which is another way of saying just be. Be as you are. As I remain as I am, I naturally do the thing that I genuinely love to do. I naturally think and act in a certain way. And I may do things in a particular way that someone suggested, or a variation, or I may not. Your way is the best way. My way is the best way. It doesn't mean that my way is better than your way for you. It doesn't mean that your way is better than my way for me. It means our ways are the best ways. And when two people, for example, in an interaction are honoring their certain way, thinking and acting in a certain way as described from the foundation of conviction as Wallace Wattles articulated, what you have is harmonious relationships. Now, I trust you've experienced this. Now, if you look at how they do it, naturally, without thinking about what we're sharing here. Rather, these are all words and sentences that point to what's going on in the Sure foundation. We see that they are in flow. So essentially, we could say then they have made flow a priority. They are being as they are. And as there is no limit to being as you are authentically, there is no limit, I found, to thinking and acting in a certain way. Practically speaking, in business, thinking in a certain way, we come up with creative solutions to seeming problems, to seeming challenges for our clients. Acting in a certain way, we move forward with conviction, and we do not see any convoluted behaviors. Maybe there might be a little bit, because there's still a release of identification happening to the illusory beliefs, which is fine. So the repetition, as mentioned, of applying this, thinking and acting in a certain way, again, again, and again, mind is purified. We can also call this living meditation, as I've been describing it. So there is, for example, a meditation practice that you may do. For me, it's a Vipassana meditation. I do a 20-minute Vipassana meditation every day, and it's very helpful. I focus on my breathing. I'll link in the description to a video with a guided Vipassana meditation. What I also do is live the meditation practice. And the way I do it is on the journey to actualizing my visions. I am presented with opportunities to release identification to illusory beliefs that are not from the premise of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. With respect to people, environment, circumstance, and information, I take those opportunities by not identifying with those thoughts in relation to the appearances, allowing the emotions to be released. And in the Vipassana meditation, we bring our attention back to the breathing. In the living meditation, I bring my attention back to thinking and acting in a certain way. So it's not like I'm always acting and thinking in a certain way in a, let's say, stress-based way. The actions, the thinking naturally flows as applicable. And at times, it may appear that I am not acting in a certain way. As in, Joseph, you're not doing something right now, you're sitting there. Well, then you can even say that I am still acting in a certain way, because in that particular moment, it is beneficial to sit down. Maybe there's some integration. Maybe there's some rejuvenation. So we see why it is so helpful to think and act in a certain way. It is essentially thinking and acting for yourself. It is not allowing your mind to conform to these patterns of this world, which is illusory. By that I mean very specifically, the illusion of conformity only appears that way in mind through particular beliefs. What we're doing is purifying the subconscious mind from those illusory beliefs so that the conscious and subconscious mind and the superconscious mind all work in harmony with each other and play out as the wonderful theater of you being in harmonious relationship with people and them being in harmonious relationship with you. So be aware then. Very simple. This is what helped me in the beginning. I was aware if I was hesitating, no shame in condemnation, by identifying with particular thoughts of hesitation. I was aware if I was holding on to emotions. I was aware of stifled behavior, we could say, and I would release it. And one of the things that helped me release it was just taking that intuitive step. So rather than overthinking it, for example, let's say I was overthinking a lot, or there was a lot of tension in the body, or emotions weren't flowing. But intuition, beyond the mental chatter, said, start the conversation with the person. I started the conversation. I didn't try to troubleshoot and fix all those other things. I started the conversation with the person, and then the emotions were released. Those thoughts that were illusory disappeared in mine. My behaviors flow. One could say, that is how I entered the flow, by taking the intuitive step, which again is what Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi talks about in the book Flow. He says where challenge meets skill. So rather than running away from the challenge of, let's say, starting a conversation with the person, I embrace the challenge. I listen to intuition. I think and act in a certain way. And again, I'm aware prior to the conversation, during the conversation, and after the conversation. And if illusory thoughts appear in mind, release them. If emotions arise, don't label them in an inharmonious way. Allow them to be released, as there's nothing wrong with you for experiencing emotions. If there's tension in the body, that's fine. I end up doing the thing anyways because I choose to think and act in a certain way. And what this does is it closes the gap between the intuitive insight, the resonant yes, and the step. So then what happens is the person doesn't procrastinate. There's no illusory thinking here. Emotions are being released. And then reality, entire reality, appears to be in harmony with you. And consider what I mentioned earlier. It is helpful to remove the biases, that it needs to go this way or that way in order for you to experience happiness, which is an illusion. The fact that you exist is happiness. The fact that you exist is love, peace, bliss, fulfillment. As you continue to accept yourself the way you are as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, you find it easier and easier to think and act in a certain way. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, I think and act in a certain way as I know that I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Prior to interactions, during interactions, and after interactions, I experience my true nature in, on, and as harmonious relationships with people, in wonderful environments, wonderful life experiences, as a harmonious relationship to actualizing our visions in a mutually beneficial way.